Hi guys, this is Mike Hibbert back with another Python Django tutorial for you. This one is another special request from one of our viewers who's asked about web services and how we can do that sort of thing using the Django framework. Well, the plain and simple answer is that with the Django framework you can't do that straight away. You do actually have to install an extra package. But it isn't too much of a stretch and it isn't very complicated, so I thought I'd take you through that and show you how easy it is to do web services, both XML and JSON. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go to our command line and we need to install the package that we're going to use. Now, as you can see there, I've already typed out what we need and it's called TastyPie. Lovely name. Says nothing about what it actually really does, but there you go, that's Python package names for you. So we're going to install this and we're going to use it in our virtual environment, so you can see I'm already inside of the virtual environment there, and we use pip to install this, or you can use easy install, it's up to you, but the package that we want is the Django-TastyPie package. Now we'll go ahead and enter that. I've already installed it, so you should see these sorts of messages if you've already installed it, which you shouldn't have already. If not, you'll see some nice messages saying that it's just downloading and it's installed, and then there should be a success message at the end. Once you've installed that, then you may consider to install a few other packages, because TastyPie by default comes with support for JSON export of information. But if you want to have XML web services, then you just need to install an extra package, and then TastyPie can then actually support both. So I'm just going to show you quickly what we need to do if you want the XML support in there. So again, it's just using pip to install the diffused XML, and with this LXML package alongside it with version greater than or equal to 3. So if you install that, you should see that go by. You should see something along the lines of this, because I've just recently installed it. It downloaded it. It also compiled it to some extent, so you might have to have the binary utils installed if you're on Ubuntu. If you're on Windows, to be fair, I wouldn't know how that gets done. I always develop on Linux because that's the nearest thing to what I'm actually going to deploy my code on, and I like to not mess around too much. But if you're on Windows then and you find out what happens, then feel free to leave a comment in the box below just to let me know exactly how that works, because I'm always happy to have extra feedback from other people developing on different platforms. So that would be great if you could do that. But anyway, after we've installed this diffused XML package along with LXML, then this gives us the extra ability to support XML web services as well as JSON web services. So with that, we've now installed the packages needed for Django to be able to use the web services. So we're just going to write a few bits of code so that we can actually start and make our database objects available through a web service. So the first thing we do is we go to our article app folder that we've been developing throughout the series, and we're going to add a new file called API, and this will be for our web services API. And inside of there we're going to add a few lines of code, and you'll be surprised at how very few the lines of code these are. I thought it was going to be quite a serious amount of coding, but when I stumbled upon TastyPie, it kind of showed me that I was wrong. So let's have a look and see what happens. So the first line we need to do is we need to import from TastyPie resources the model resource, because in web services things are called resources. So this is the kind of paradigm or way of thinking that they like to put across. So everything's a resource, and in this case we're going to use our articles model, and we're going to turn that into a resource or a web service that you can then query for the articles inside of our database through through the Django framework's URLs. So the next thing is my phone going off again. I think that's about the fourth video that I've made this year that's got that in, but my apologies. So this next line is basically us importing a constant called all. What this constant does is it allows us to set the kind of query types that we can perform on our models. For instance, you can list all of the articles in the articles collection, but say you wanted to filter, so you wanted to do something similar to what we did in our Ajax tutorial, where we wanted to do a filter where something contains a string. If we wanted to do that kind of filter, we actually have to set that. It's not the default behavior for these resources or these web services, so you have to actually define that, and I'll show you how to do that just shortly. But that's what this all constant is for. I'm going to basically say allow this resource to query my model in all the ways available, so we'll show you that later anyway. So next thing is just to import our article model, so we can actually include it with this resource that we're going to do. The way that we declare the resource is by making a class. So you can see here everything in Django and indeed in Python is about classes. It's all object orientated. So if you know Python and you know how to make classes, then you know how to build resources using TastyPy. You know how to build models, you know how to build forms. Everything in Django is an object, as is the case with Python in general. So in this case, we're going to create a class called article resource, and it's going to derive from the basic model resource, because that's our model. So we're going to make this class draw out all of the aspects and data from this article model and create a web resource or a web service from it. The next thing we're going to do is something similar that we saw in models, is we're going to create a meta class, because this is going to give us extra information about this resource. And the meta information that we're going to pass to it is, first of all, that the query set, or the things that this resource will provide, is taken from the articles objects all collection. So that's everything in the articles database. So from that, we then say when this web service is called on our URLs, its name will be called article. So when we come to do our URL, we're going to say articles API, and then we're going to say article, and that's the name we're referring to just here. We're saying that when it's called on the URL, this is what it's identified by. Okay, so that's all we need to do to define a basic web service, other than, of course, make it available through the URL system. So we need to do a little bit more, but in our URLs file. So our article urls.py file is where we need to add some code, and it's a few more lines. So the next thing we do is, from our API module, import our article resource, and then we create an instance of it, calling it article_resource. And from that, we can then take advantage of all the things that are wrapped up inside of what this model resource class actually does. We can take advantage of that and pull out all the default URLs that would be likely to be used with this web service, because it's all built into that model resource class, which makes it absolutely dead simple to use. So all we do is we add another line in our URL patterns, we say that it's going to be an API, so that's our articles API section, and we're going to include all of the URLs that should be contained inside of our instance of article resource. These URLs, like I say, are automatically generated by the model resource class that we've derived our article resource class from. How cool is that? Dead simple. So with that, all we need to do now is a little bit more command line work, because obviously with Django including this new model and these new resources, we need to update our database. So we need to run the python manage py syncdb, and this will include whatever's needed in the database side for the web services in TastyPie to actually work. Once you've done that, then the next thing we only need to do is just to run the server. Let's take a look at what we've got. So the first thing we do is we look at our URL, and we've got articles API as we planned, and then article on the end. This should give us all of the results, but it doesn't. And the reason why is it says, sorry, not implemented yet, please append ? Format JSON. So we literally need to tell it what format do you want it output at, and that gives us the whole contents of the database in JSON format. Okay, so say we wanted XML instead. Because we installed those extra modules at the beginning of the tutorial, we now get this instead. So you have a web service that's compatible with two different data types that you can transfer across a network and hopefully restore or serialize your objects with across different machines using XML or with JSON. Now, say we wanted to just draw out a few of these instead of one specific one, which we could do. By default, we could pick an ID, and that would just bring out one. And we can see there, that's the ID there. Notice also that you don't just get the actual information like the publish date or the likes or the body that comes out or the thumbnail or the title. You also get a resource URI. So this generates a URI that you can tack onto the end of your web service so that you can then go to that directly. So say we go to here and replace it with the contents of that. It's the same thing that we did before, but we can also change that, and that's literally keying the database by the ID of the object. However, say you wanted to do like we did in the last tutorial about Ajax, and you want to be able to search by some, the title is something like a string that we've input. How can we do that? Well, we need to add in a little bit extra into the mix for that. So I'm just going to stop the server, and in our API I'm going to add an extra line, and it's called filtering. And this basically says the fields inside of this. So say we had title or body or both or the whole lot of them, we can say what kind of filtering we will allow to be performed through the web service on this particular part of the table. So I'm going to say, using our all constant, that title can be filtered in all the available ways. We could just put contains there if we wanted to, and that would mean that you could only use the contains filter. You might remember from the last tutorial when we used an extension on the end of inside of our model where we were doing the title and then we did 2 underscores and then contains. Well, you can do exactly that through the URL. So I'll show you how to do that just after I've updated this. Just restart the server to include our new code. Now, we've already started a query string on the end here, so we just need to put an ampersand. Let's say title contains Mike. Okay. Oh, excuse me, left a little bit in there. Need to get rid of that bit. Yeah, so whoa, too far. Right, so there's our XML version. If we just change that to JSON, there we go. Mike, or test is a good word because there's a few that come out with test, or ICLE, which I think there was only a very few that actually had ICLE in it. There you go. So we've got, if I just do a quick search to try and highlight where the IDs are, you've got one ID here and one ID there. So there's two articles that have been filtered out that contain ICLE in the title. So that's a very basic overview of how that would work. And you can see that it's pretty awesome and very, very easy to configure. And if you're looking to create web services, then this is, you know, an ideal thing. I'm sure it's not the only package out there, but I think that's, for what it is, it's really, really great. So that's the end of this tutorial. I hope that that was informative and you learned a lot from that. If you liked this video, then please click the like button. And if you'd like to know more about the series and any other new video tutorials that I put out in the future, then please click the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.